that. And then the perimeter, so the amount of fencing I'm going to give you, the perimeter is 200 meters. Trust me, I'm going to make it into 6. You don't want 5, it forces you a fraction.
It's 5 pens.
5 pens, 6 widths.
Oh.
I'll make your perimeter 240 as well. Just trust me. Just trust me. Make me 240. You should never be writing 10 on your notes anyway. Right, quicker? It gives you speed. Okay, so the perimeter is 240. The reason why I switched it to that is because it made you have 6 widths, and 240 is divisible by 6. 200 wasn't, I would have forced you a fraction. Once again, I was doing this for your welfare. Okay? So I want you to go try and solve this one out. I want the max area and the dimensions that would make the max area. So I want the width and the length. That's what I want. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is set up a perimeter equation, correct? Now, if I did not have the stalls in the middle of this, correct? If there was no stalls in the middle of this here would be a length. This here would be a length, correct? And this would be a width, and this would be a width. We agree? So that whole length is a length, the other whole length is a length, and we have a width and a width. However, there are stalls, so we have a few more widths that we have to put fence on, correct? So we have a width, a width, a width, a width. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have perimeter equals 2 lengths plus 6 widths. Now I had started off with 5, which would have went nicely into the 200, but I would have ended up having 5 over 2 as my fraction when I solve for L, right? Which we'll practice something like that, but I just didn't want to hit you with it the first day. Okay, so we have 240 equals 2 lengths plus 6 widths. Subtract my 6 over, so I'm going to get negative 6W plus 240 equals 2 lengths. Divide by 2 each term, and I get L equals negative 3W plus 120. Now that's going to be my length, right? So I'm halfway to finishing. So I get my perimeter equation, solve for my length, then I input it into my what? Max area formula. So max area equals length times width. And my length in this case is negative 3W plus 120. And I multiply it by my width. My next step is to distribute. So I get negative 3W squared plus 120W. If people are like, I wonder if she's going to put one of these on the test, she will. She's me. I know what's on the test. She's going to put one of these on the test. So there's some people who bank on me not putting it on and not learning the steps. It's going to be there. It's one that's usually out of 3 marks, and you end up with a 0 if you choose not to learn how to do it. 0 out of a test that's out of 25 marks. When you take 3 off of that, it's a big percentage, right? So don't bank on not knowing how to do it. That's a bad decision. You should never do that for any of the questions, but especially not this one. Okay. We take a negative 3 out of the first 2 terms, we get W squared minus 40W. Now this needs to be a minus because when I'm going to factor it, I'm going to get W minus something, correct? When I get that, my W is actually positive when I take it out of there. So you're always going to have a minus in this formula. If you don't, you need to have one. Then you're going to add a blank. And then you can have a square bracket here. So we're going to go negative 40 divided by 2 squared. I don't skip any steps. Is negative 20 squared is 400. So I'm going to add 400, and I'm going to subtract 400, and I'm going to put a square bracket. And then I'm going to get negative 3, and then I get, look one back, minus 20. If you go, what multiplies to be 400 and adds to be negative 40, it's W minus 20, W minus 20. And then to get rid of the square bracket, I have to remember to multiply. If you forget to multiply in this case, you're going to tell me the max area is negative 400, which makes absolutely no sense. Max areas can't be negative. Then you'd be like, oh, it must be positive. So it's positive 400. No, it doesn't just miraculously turn positive because you know it needs to be positive. That's why you have to multiply that number out. So negative 3 times negative 400 is positive 1200. And when I go to rewrite it, I get negative 3 W minus 20 squared plus 1200. And then I told you I wanted the max area and I wanted the dimensions. Well, what does this W minus 20 represent? It's the width because it's W, correct? If I had isolated W instead and replaced it, then this would be the length because there'd be an L left, right? So it just depends on what you're doing. I always isolate L, doesn't matter. So this one would be the width equals 20 meters. Please don't forget the units. There's units, it's dimensions, correct? What does this 1200 represent? Always. Max area. And it equals 1200 meters squared. I'm missing the length. Anyone remember how to find that? Anyone know? Yeah. Manipulate the area formula. So if I need length, it's area divided by width. If I need width, it's area divided by length. Correct? So if I need length, it's area divided by width. So my length is going to equal 1200 meters squared divided by 20 meters, which is 60 meters. So if I ask you for the dimensions are 60 meters by 20 meters, right? That's what the dimensions are. It's like, what are all the dimensions of this thing? And then the max area is how much it would take, how much you would get in the end out of all of this if I actually built this structure, right? This would be what would get me the largest structure with the perimeter of fencing I gave you, right? If I change the perimeter of fencing, it's going to change all these numbers, right? Okay, we're going to flip back to our notes to page, I think it was 12. We're going to go back to that, and we're going to do the profit question. So we're on example 3 at the bottom of page 12. So just like the farmer questions are all set up the exact same, the revenue questions will be set up the exact same. They're just done differently. So it's not, you're not going to follow the same steps because you don't have a perimeter formula to start with, right? So they can't follow the same steps. However, there are two types of word problems I can give you in this particular unit, which is quadratic functions. Quadratic functions is us answering questions about what the graph looks like. So we did vertex, we did domain, we did range, we changed from completed the square vertex form to standard form. We changed from standard form to vertex form. We also came up with the equation of a graph, right? That's what we did this whole time. And these word problems fit the same thing. They're going to make you complete the square, and we're going to talk about the vertex. We've really been focusing on the vertex for this unit, correct? The second unit that we're starting on today is quadratic equations. Quadratic equations focuses completely on how to find x-intercepts and the different ways you can do that algebraically. Okay? So we focus mainly on the vertex and the domain and range for this unit. The next unit we focus on how the heck can we get those x-intercepts algebraically. Okay? And then they connect together because they're quadratics. It's all quadratics. But you have to be able to spot the difference of what you need to do. So the farmer questions, we always have to complete the square to get the answer, correct? And the revenue questions, we're always going to have to complete the square to get the answer. And you need to have that embedded in your head. Because at the end of the next unit, we're actually going to learn some new word problems where we have to find the x-intercepts to get the answer. Okay? So for these ones, we want max. And that's the key thing you have to see. So if it says, I want the max area, they're asking us to find the maximum. The maximum is the vertex, correct? And how do you find the vertex? Putting it into vertex form, correct? Now they're going to ask for the maximum revenue. If they ask for the maximum revenue, they're asking you to find the maximum. And what's the maximum? The vertex. So you're going to have different word problems on the unit test. Some that are going to ask you to find x-intercepts, and some that are going to make you complete the square. And how do you know they ask you to complete the square? They have the word maximum or minimum in them. Because what's your max or your min? Your vertex. How do you get your vertex? Completing the square. Okay? So we need to look at the word problems and see. And before you write your test, I'm going to give you a word problem. And I'm going to say, what are we going to do? Word problem, what are we going to do? Because you need to be able to decipher which ones you're finding x-intercepts on and which ones you're finding the vertex of based on what they're asking you to do. Okay? So here we have the student council at a high school is planning a fundraising activity with professional photographers or with a professional photographer, I don't know, taking portraits of individuals or groups. The student council gets to charge and keep a session fee for each individual or group photo session. Last year they charged $10 session fee and had 400 sessions booked. Okay? And then what we're going to do next on all of these questions is we're either going to increase the price or decrease the price. And when we do that, we're going to sell more or sell less. Okay? So a question like this, instead of, we'll come back to this one. Another question that they ask like this is they'll say, the Calgary Flames are trying to sell more tickets, correct? So if they want to sell more tickets, what they might do is reduce the cost per ticket, and then they'll get to sell more, right? More people would buy if the tickets were less, correct? Which would increase their profit, correct? To a point. If you make the tickets like $100 less, it doesn't matter how many more you're going to sell, you're never going to make the same amount as if you just sold them for what you were selling for them originally, right? Like if you reduce the price of a ticket up to a certain point, you're not going to make more money. You're actually going to make less because you can only sell X number of tickets. So what we do in these questions is we try and figure out how much more we could reduce the price to maximize our profit, right? Or how much more could we increase the price and sell less of it to maximize our profit. Because there's a point where if you increase it too much, you're going to sell way less. Or you decrease it too little, you can't make it up by selling more because you have a maximum you can sell. Okay? So that's what these are. They're maximum revenue questions. What could I do? What could I reduce the price by and increase the amount I sell to make me more money? Okay? So this particular one, they had last year, they sold it for $10 and they had 400 sessions. Okay? So you are always going to make 2 brackets for this. Okay? You're going to do 2 brackets. You're going to have a revenue bracket, and you're going to have a quantity bracket. Revenue is money, quantity is quantity. How much you're selling, right? So I always say money with money. I always say money, 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 money. So put the money with the money, and quantity with quantity. Okay? So how much did we start off selling these at last year? $10. So I'm going to start the front of my revenue bracket with $10. And I'm going to close my bracket. And then I'm going to start my quantity bracket off with how many I sold. How many did I sell? 400. And then their genius idea is to be like, okay, good. I'm glad we did that last year. But we're going to try this out this year. I'm going to increase by this, or I'm going to decrease by this. That's how you're going to end both brackets. Money with money, quantity with quantity. Okay? So let's keep reading. It said, last year they charged a $10 session fee and 400 were booked. Now, in considering what price they should charge this year, student council members estimate that for every $1 increase, so where's that going to go with? The 10 or the 400? With the 10. So I'm going to increase it by $1. So I'm going to put a 1. But I'm increasing every session by $1, correct? So I'm going to put an X here. And X is going to help me figure out how much of these things I'm going to sell, correct? So you always start the front of the bracket with what you did before, and the back of the bracket with an X on how you're changing it. Okay? So with every $1 increase, which I should be underlining that, they expect to have 20 fewer sessions. So they sold 400 sessions last year. They're going to have 20 less. What am I going to do? Minus 20, and what do I have to do with the back number always? Put an X. Because that's the change. The changing number goes at the back, whether it's price, whether it's quantity. That changing number gets an X with it because it's how much it's changing. Right? So I'm going to deduct minus 1 for every session I sell, right? So the X is how many sessions I sell. I have to figure that out. Okay? So this is my revenue bracket. This is my quantity bracket. If I take the revenue per ticket and I multiply it by the quantity, so if I take the price per ticket, I multiply it by the quantity, what am I actually getting in the end? How much money I made, right? So last year, they sold it for $10 and they sold 400 sessions. So how much money did they make? 4,000, because I just multiplied the two, correct? So Wee. So this would be more like, instead of saying revenue, I should have said price. Ignore that. We're going to put price. Because if we take the price per ticket and the quantity of tickets, we get the maximum profit, you could write it as, or you could say revenue. They mean the same thing. And that gets me my equation. So that's how I come up with the equation. Does it make sense how you get the equation every single time? Last year's price, last year's quantity, this year's price change, and change of quantity. And when it's change, you have to multiply it by x because it's how much changing you're doing, how many you're selling. Okay? So I want max profit. If I want max profit, that screams I need to find the maximum. And when I have to find the maximum, the only way I can find the maximum is by completing the square of the equation. Do you agree? How do I complete a square of two brackets multiplied together? I can't. What am I going to have to do first? FOIL, collect like terms, then complete the square. Correct? So there's just an extra step in here. Whenever it says maximum, in the end, I know I'm going to have to complete the square. Maximum profit, maximum area. I know, okay, Crystal, at some point you're going to have to complete the square because I need a maximum. I can't do it the way it is, but I can FOIL that out, collect like terms, and then I can find a maximum easily. Right? So let's try that out. So that's going to be our first step. Our first step is to make up the equation. And then our second step is going to actually be to complete the square, which we're going to flip over. You're going to flip over, because on the next page it asks you to do it. So we're going to flip over to, it's on that new page. So it says, what is the maximum revenue? So this is where it's actually asking us to do the work, right? So our formula, our profit, our max revenue in this case, because that's what it's asking us for, is going to be equal to 10 plus 1x times 400 minus, was it 10? I don't remember. How did we go? How much did we go? 20? I blanked. I couldn't remember what that number was. So the first thing we're going to have to do is FOIL this out, get it into x squared x number, because then I can complete the square just fine. Like this, there's no way to complete the square. I'm just stuck. I'm like, oh, we'll do this up. So we're going to FOIL first. Because we have a binomial times a binomial, we need to FOIL. So we go 10 times 400 is 4,000. 10 times negative 20x is negative 200x. 1 times 400x is 400x. Or 1 times 400, sorry, x is 400x. And then 1x times negative 20x is negative 20x squared. And then this is not a good completed the square form, because completing the square, I have to have x squared, x number. Take the number out of the first two, x squared and x, right? So right now it's just not in a form I can complete the square with still. So when I collect like terms, I have to go in decreasing order. So I'm going to start with negative 20x squared. And then negative 200 plus 400 is plus 200x. And then plus 4,000. Now do I have it in a form I can complete the square in? Yeah. So if I can't complete the square, can I do either of these word problems? No, that's how you do the word problem. That's how you solve the word problems, by completing the square. So if you're someone who's like, I still can't complete the square, you will not be able to do these word problems. Like, there's just no way, right? You can't do them algebraically. So if you're someone who's struggling and is like, I still can't complete the square, you need to come in and say, Mrs. Lepp, I can't complete the square. Help me. And we'll just practice a whole bunch on the board till you like walk away being like, I'm a goddess of completing the square. I'm so good at this, I could write a book about it. That's how good I am. Okay? So what's our first step for completing the square? We take our coefficient out of the first two terms. So let's do that. So we're going to go negative 20, square bracket, round bracket. Negative 20 out of negative 20x squared is x squared. Negative 20, 200, divided by negative 20 is negative 10x. Then I add a blank every single time. Every single time. We're doing the same thing. So how do I get that blank? I go B. B is the one always beside it now. Negative 10, and I take the sign of it. Negative 10 squared, or divide by 2, squared, which is negative 5 squared. I do not skip the step because I'm going to use that number, equals 25. So I'm going to add 25, round bracket. I'm going to subtract 25, square bracket. And unlike the farmer question, I actually do have a number at the back. So I'm going to add 4,000. I just keep going. I'm going to get negative 20. What multiplies to me 25 and adds to me negative 10? X minus 5, X minus 5. I just go back to this number. X minus 5, X minus 5. And then I do negative 20 times negative 25 is positive what? 500? Plus 4,000. So I'm going to get negative 20 x minus 5 squared plus 4,500. Once you're done writing that, I have to explain something because this is where people go awry. Okay. When we did the farmer question, we had a W minus 10, and then we knew 10 was the width, correct? We agree? And the back number was the max area. We agree? The back number still is the max something. What is it this time? It's the maximum revenue. It's always whatever the equation equals, right? So it's the maximum revenue. So we're going to put that. So this is the maximum revenue. So the maximum revenue is 4,500. So they realized that last year they sold enough to make 4,000. We agree? This year, by decreasing the tickets by $1, they actually sold. They're going to sell more, or increasing it, sorry, by $1. They're going to sell less. Wow, that was totally the opposite of what I just said. And by selling less, you think, oh, they're going to make less, correct? But they actually sold less, but remember, because they increased the price, they actually make a larger profit. So maximum revenue, that's the easy one to find. The other question they can ask you is they can say, how much did they sell the tickets for, and how many did they sell? Okay? The X value is neither of those answers. The X value is not at all what they sold the tickets for, or how many tickets they sold. It's 5. They didn't sell it for $5, and they didn't sell 5 tickets. That's kind of crazy, right? People will give me that answer. The X is that change in what they did, that X value that we added to the end, right? That's what the X is. So our X is 5. That is true. It is the answer to nothing. Please don't tell me that's a profit. Please don't tell me that's how much you paid per ticket. Please don't tell me that's how many tickets you sold. It's actually neither of those things. It's helpful to go back to the 2 brackets we had, correct? So we had 2 brackets. Our 2 brackets were price. The price bracket was 10 plus 1x, was it not? So knowing x is 5, how much did they sell it for? 15. You can take the x now and put it back in and get what the price is, right? The x is helpful, but it's not an actual answer. If you're like 5 and you give me 5 somewhere as an answer, you're wrong, because it's not an answer to anything. It's helpful to get the answer. So I said the price was 10 plus 1x, correct? And now we found out x is 5. So the price is 10 plus 1 times 5. So the price is $15. So now I could say, hey, they actually sold each of these sessions for 15 bucks. Correct? Now if I want to know how many sessions they sold, what can I do? Go to the quantity bracket. Correct? The quantity bracket is 400 minus 20x. X is what again? What did we figure it out to be? 5. So I'm going to go 400 minus 20 times 5. 20 times 5 is 100, correct? So this is 300 sessions. So they sold 100 sessions less, but still made more money. Now, once you get those 2 things, you should be able to check them really easy. If you take the number of sessions and you multiply it by how many sessions, you should get, what did we find? Our maximum revenue, right? Our maximum revenue was 4,500, wasn't it? So if I take 15, take your $15 and times by your 300 sessions. 15 times 300. 15 times 3 is 45. Add 2 zeros. It's 4,500. So you should, once you found your price and your quantity, if you're correct, when you multiply those 2 out, you should be getting your max revenue back. You should be able to walk away from this question going, boom, I got it, or ugh, something is wrong. Right? We agree? Okay, example 4 is another one. You're going to try it out. Try example 4. This one is about a sporting goods store selling reusable water bottles. And if they had sold this many and this many, they're now going to increase the price and see how many sell. Do they always have to increase? No, they could decrease the price and then increase how many are being sold or something like that. Okay, you're going to try it out. Please make sure that you always have all the information that I'm writing down, because when I'm writing it, it's because that's how you fully get marks. Okay? So, there's a lot of you who are writing out equations and doing all the work, and by a lot of you, I mean 90% of you. You're writing out equations and you're doing all the work, but you're missing information to actually prove what the heck you're finding. So remember, the first thing you always want to do is you want to write maximum, or max at the very least, revenue. Because that's the equation you're making. Remember in the farmer question we wrote max area, because that was the equation we were making, correct? So often what I find is people can do the math, they're just math, the way to write math is scary. You don't know actually how to write it. So it would be like giving me a sentence that says, I like dogs, and being like, dogs like, and then just never putting the I, and it means not the same thing, right? You're not actually writing a complete sentence for math, because math is actual words. The whole time you're writing it, it's like a math language. So you have to do it the way it is. So we have max revenue equals, okay? Now, I always do profit first. You can do whatever you want, but I always do the price first. So this would be my price, and then I do my quantity. And I put an arrow off of it to help myself out, so that when I get the X value, I know which one to plug it in. Because often they don't ask for the selling price and quantity, they'll ask for one, and if you give the wrong one, then it's not right. You know what I mean? So here we have, they sold the bottles for $8, and they sold approximately 100 items. So that's in the past. So that goes in the front. And the other part goes in the back with an X, right? Because that's the change. The change always gets an X. And we find out what the change is. That's what the X is. It says research says that for every increase, $2, so I go money. Money goes with money. So for every $2 increase, so I put an X, because that's my change, manager can expect to sell 5 fewer water bottles, so minus 5X. Right? Our next step always is to expand. So we're going to distribute. So we're going to get 8 times 100, which is 800. 8 times negative 5, negative 40X. 2x times 100 is plus 200X. 2x minus 5x is negative 10x squared. And then it's to rewrite it in an order that's helpful. So negative 10x squared, 200 minus 40 is plus 160x plus 800. And that would be your plain old maximum revenue question. If I asked you to give me an equation that represented the situation, boom, you got one. Okay? But if I ask for maximum revenue, or ask for the selling price, or ask for the quantity that would give you maximum revenue, it still has the word maximum in it. Right? And what happens when it has the word maximum in it? I have to complete the square. We agree? Okay. So I take the negative 10 out of the first two terms. Square bracket, round bracket. I get x squared minus 16x plus blank. How do I get the blank? I go negative 16 divided by 2 squared, which is negative 8 squared, which is equal to 64. Do you see how I have equal signs on here? Why would I have equal signs there? Well, you're really good at math, terrible at writing math. Yep.
To show that you're continuing.
Yeah. To show that you're continuing to solve. Show that they're all equal. Right? Negative 16 divided by 2 squared equals negative 8 squared equals 64. Most of the time you guys just have the random math just floating. But in reality, what you're doing is you're going this equals this equals this, correct? So show that with equal signs. Okay? So we need to get your math writing skills up to your math skills. We need to get you to learn how to actually put math properly down on a page. And do you see how I have equal signs running down each side? Why do I have equal signs running down the side? Because this, once I FOIL it, equals this. Once I collect like terms, equals this. When I complete the square, equals, like they're all equal. If I typed every single one of those lines into my equation in y1, y2, y3, y4, let's say, I get the exact same graph because they're all the same, right? This is just the standard form for this vertex form, right? They're all the same thing. So if I type this first bracket one in, and then this one in, and then this one into y3, and this one into y4, the graph, it'd be the exact same graph over and over and over because they equal each other. Do you see that? That's why we have equal signs, because they're the exact same, just written differently. Does that make sense? Okay. So we get 64 minus 64 square bracket plus 800. And then I get negative 10. What multiplies to give me 64 and adds to me negative 16. And I get x minus 8, which I want it to be a minus because the x value going in has to be a positive value and it's changing. So it's changing at 5. And then negative 10 times negative 64 is positive 640 plus 800. And then I get negative 10 x minus 8 squared plus 1440. Okay, it says, determine the maximum revenue the manager can expect based on these estimates. What's the maximum revenue? 1440, right? And it's money, so I need to have a dollar sign. We agree? That back number is always the maximum revenue. So you can't just circle it and be like, boom, there it is. You have to write a sentence, and people, I hated writing sentences. Why did I hate writing sentences? Because honestly, I knew how to get the math, but I wasn't always sure what it meant. So it was like the moment I wrote sentences, it was like, now I have to actually understand it, okay? Which you have to understand it. So they asked us for maximum revenue, so we're going to say the maximum. It's great. You just rewrite the sentence or the question. Maximum revenue the manager can expect based on the estimates. You see how I'm literally just rewriting it? Should say based. It's not based on. Terrible. Based on these estimates is a dollar sign, because it's money, $1,440. Then it says, what selling price will give me the maximum revenue? Which of those brackets do I care about right now? The first one, 8 plus 2x, or the second one, 100 minus 5x? I'm talking about selling price. Yeah, the first one, 8 plus 2x, because that's the price one. What is x? X equals 8. 8 should appear nowhere in any of your sentences. It should not be like, the selling price is $8. I sell 8 bottles. That's not at all what this is. That 8 should appear nowhere in your answer. You need it to get your answer, though, but it should appear nowhere in your answer. So the price is 8 plus 2 times 8, which is actually $24. We agree? So what are we going to write? What selling price gives the maximum revenue? The selling price that gives the maximum revenue is $24. What else could they have asked me to find? How many bottles I sold, right? And how would I do that? Fill into the other one. So I would go 100 minus 5 times 8, 100 minus 40, which is 60. And then if I took the 60 bottles and I multiplied it by 24, I should get 1,440. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to have you guys work on page 14. You're going to do numbers 2, 5, and 6. 2, 5, and 6. So on that page 14, 2, 5, and 6. And then before you leave, the last 10 minutes before you leave, so at about 11:20-ish, I'm going to show you how to start using your calculator to find x-intercepts. So we're just going to start doing some discovery learning, but no homework on it. So 2, I don't remember I signed, 2, 5, and 6 on here. So page 14, 2, 5, and 6. So we're just going to need our calculators. So we're going to type into y equals x squared minus 3x minus 4. Can you type that into your calculator, please, into your y equals? Y equals x squared minus 3x minus 4. We're just going to start working into our calculators. So y equals x squared minus 3x minus 4. Once this pops. So we have x squared minus 3x minus 4, and then zoom 6, because I don't know what my Windows set it, because I swapped between you guys and for you guys on AP stuff. Okay, did it show up? Everyone's got it? What do we know how to find so far? Using our calculators. The vertex. And in this case, we have to look for what? There's no like second trace vertex. That's not a button we have. So what are we going to have to do? Second trace minimum. So to find the vertex, we have to do either second trace minimum or second trace maximum, right? And in this case, it's concave up, so it's minimum. Make sure you're following along. So it says left bound. We need to be left bound of whatever the heck we're finding, correct? And we're finding the minimum. Am I on the left of it? Yeah. Enter. Then right bound. Needs to be on the right of it. And then I hit enter. What do I do when it says yes?
Enter.
Enter. So what's my minimum at, or my vertex at in this case? 1.5 and negative 6.25. Boom, boom, right? What's my axis of symmetry at? We need something before that. X equals 1.5. It's an equation of the axis of symmetry, right? What's my domain of this graph? Domain of every quadratic unless it's a work. X, the number of the reals. What's my range? What's the lowest my y goes to? Negative 6.25 or higher, correct? So my range is going to be y such that y is greater than or equal to negative 6.25, y yard. We've done that all before, correct? The only thing we haven't really found is our x-intercepts and our y-intercepts. We agree? Okay. So how we find our y-intercepts, we're just practicing. We're not writing anything down. We literally just have our calculators out, right, Nick? Yeah, type it in. So we are literally just have our calculators out. So we are going to find the y-intercept. And when we say y-intercept, x equals what? 0. Everyone following along, or you will lose. Everyone's paying attention, no phones out. So we want the x-intercept, or we want the y-intercept. So x equals 0, correct? The place where we can put x equal to 0 is in value. So you're following along. So we've already done this before. We're calculating something. When we want to calculate something, same buttons over and over. Second trace, because the word above it is calc. We agree? So we're going to go second trace, and we're trying to find the y-intercept. So we have to find a spot where we can put x equals 0, and if we find that spot, we hit enter, and we get our y-intercept, correct? Because x equals 0 is where our y-intercept's at. So if we press number 1, it's actually the place where we can put x is equal to in. And what do we want to put in that spot? 0. And then we hit enter. Boom, what's my y-intercept at? Negative 4. We agree? Now, this is the harder one. We want to find x-intercepts. X-intercepts, a word for x-intercept is x-intercept, or they say roots, or they say zeros. They have 3 words that mean the exact same thing, and they can use them whichever way they want. So on a test, I can say determine the roots, or I can say determine the zeros, or I can say determine the x-intercepts. It means the same thing. Okay? So we're going to go second, and everyone's paying attention, or I will lose you. This is where people get lost. Second trace, and I'm going to pick number 2, because number 2 says 0. And 0 is another word for x-intercepts. Now, everyone's following along? Everyone's brains are with me. Okay. It says left bound. When it said left bound for the max and mins, that's why we did this one first. I had to be on the, for the minimum, I had to be on the left side, then the right side, then yes, I hit enter. We agree? We can't find both x-intercepts at the same time. There's 2 of them. So I'm going to find this one first. So I'm going to pretend to put a dashed line through it just so you can see. So I put like a little axis of symmetry through it. Do you see that? Right, Colton? Yes. So I put a little axis of symmetry. Oh my goodness, axis of symmetry through it, didn't I? So what part of the graph is on the left of that dashed line? The part to the left, correct? So am I on the left currently with the blinking? No, I'm currently on the right of that dashed line, aren't I? So I need to get on the left. Oh, put down your marker, Lepp. Just putting a lot of marker. So I need to go left of it. Am I on the left of it now? Yep, hit enter. Then I need to be on the right-hand side of it. So now I need to be below the x-axis. Now I'm on the right-hand side somewhere. I don't go past the vertex. Am I still on the right? I'm on the right. I can go anywhere over here. Then I hit enter. Now I have a little bit on the left and I have a little bit on the right, and then it says what? Guess. And what do I do when it says guess? Just hit enter. So where's my first x-intercept at? -1 and 0. Rinse, repeat. We want to find the other one, so we have to do it again. Second trace, you have to push the buttons. You can't just left bound and right bound. There are no left bound right bounds anymore. Second trace number 2. Now I'm going through this one right here. So I'm going to put a vertical line. So I go second trace. Now I need to be on the left side of that one, past the vertex. So am I on the left of it now? Yeah, anywhere over here. Hit enter. Now it says right bound. Now I need to be somewhere on the right of it. Hit enter. And then it says guess, so I hit enter, and it's at 4 and 1. That's crazy. It needs to be at 0. Is it actually at 4 and 1? What does e to the -12 mean? 0. It means 0 decimal 0.00000000001, which I can round to 0. That's a substantial amount of zeros, right? So remember, when it's e to the negative anything, please don't go 4 and 1. E to the negative anything means this is a 0. It would be 4, 0. Does that make sense? So we're doing we're going to do that tomorrow. We're going to do factoring, solving by factoring, and then checking with our calculator. Solve by factoring, check with our calculator. That's what we're doing all tomorrow.